I'm Kenneth Levin, and I'm a new assistant professor in the Department of Social Sciences. I'm teaching two economics courses this semester. They're both introductory economics courses. One's principles of microeconomics, and the other is the principles of macroeconomics. It's an amazing time to be at BMCC right here on the footsteps of the entire economic feast. It's going to change the field of economics. I think it's changing right in front of us as I teach the courses. So it's got the students really on edge, really engaged, really thinking about questions about the outside world and bringing those big, good questions into the classroom. And it's made it really easy to teach my courses this semester. Although it's a challenge, I've been very happy, to see that type of enthusiasm for my field. In teaching macroeconomics, what I try to concentrate on are the imbalances in the general economy. We've got right now a tension between price pressure, some up, some in some industries, some down, and also in job creation and profits for corporations. Typically, we think of business cycles being peaked out because of shrinking unemployment and great opportunities for workers, squeezing out profits for companies. Unfortunately, the current economic situation is something quite different. And that's why I think the field of economics is changing in my classroom as I'm even teaching it. Because what has happened now is there's been generally a structural misalignment in the economy. And in teaching it to the students, it's really about getting them to understand both the supply side of the economy and the demand side of the economy. And what has happened over time, the students have really been questioning as we've been teaching. When we first teach macroeconomics, we teach the demand side of the economy and the buying capacity of people and how to stimulate buying, which our economic leaders have been doing for the last 14 months generally, and really intensively the last couple months, is that there seems to be a problem because the spending side of the economy has ground to a halt as the selling side of the economy, the supply side, has ground forward. So in balancing out the supply and the demand side of the economy, conceptually and theoretically, that's the new challenge in economics. There's always been these paradigms of thought. There was the Keynesian demand side and the supply siders that have come into dominance the last 25 years in the schools and in policy in the government. But now there seems to be some sort of need to reintegrate the two because they've misaligned. And so that's the big question that students are trying to work out in the classroom, and I try to teach a full range of perspectives on it, and it's just it's been great to be in the midst of it for the last couple months, right in the hot seat. Well, when I'm teaching the macroeconomics course, there's a lot of worries from students because they're really focusing on their position. They know that their position as students, their positions is coming from really the middle class of America. That's really the type of students that go to BMCC, is quite different than some of the needs of the corporations and the governments, at least directly. Indirectly, everything's interdependent. So the students are quite worried about what has happened to the middle class of the country and how the government's going to respond to that, and how the economists have understood that. And so I go through some economic history, try to give them a sense of how the economy has changed over time since the 1930s, the last time we had a real serious structural, systematic downturn as we're having now, and help them to see how government has tended to respond over time and how the businesses and the governments had this little back and forth dance that's led us to the position we're in now, and hopefully to come to a better understanding. At times you get response from the students that are really sort of blow me away, that just they really see something that I didn't even notice, and so it's a real learning process, both sides of the podium in the classroom. So while I'm teaching the course, I'm sort of developing my own analysis of the current economic crisis. And what I've begun to see is that I think that there's a delay, there's a serious lag in hesitancy on the side of the policymakers to react to it in a way that we see it unfolding in the textbook. So as somebody in the classroom, I'm describing something that is almost like, it's like an equation being balanced, and you solve the equation and there's an answer. And it's sort of pretty clear what kind of needs to be done. In the current crisis, I think what needs to be done is much more strong, decisive action than what we've seen so far. And it seems like the new president, there's confidence. Seems like he's got. He also I think he sort of shares my own view a little bit. You can tell it over the weekend that we heard that he wants to come up with a much bigger plan than anybody was talking about a couple weeks ago. And this is all unfolded since the election. So I think there will be some decisive action, and I hope it comes soon. And I would definitely support and agree that that's where the country needs to go. The government needs to do something that the private markets can't seem to do on their own right now. And if they don't do it, it won't correct so soon, and it could be real difficult for a lot of people for quite a while. So, I think that's how it's developed in the classroom. I mean, when I think of the rising unemployment, that's when I really worry about my students, and I think, what can I tell them to do for jobs? That's always in the back of their mind is in the classroom is, what I be learning matter for a job? What should I do for a job, and will the jobs be there? Can I learn and understand the economy so I'll understand where the jobs are? In that case, I think the best thing for a student is really to realize that there's not a lot they can do, that hopefully the jobs get created, across the board in whatever fields they're interested, and to do what they do, go into their chosen field, explore, take a broad range of classes, and definitely take, even if they're not going to major in economics, take a few economics courses extra. And I always recommend they do ones that are, there's international courses in international economics and development in Latin America and Asia. There's courses on the European Union, economic history, and history of economic thought. It's really a much bigger field than a lot of people think. The more technical, mathematical, quantitative courses are for the people in the major who are going to go on and major in it, or perhaps go on to graduate school. But for anybody who's really interested in the field, there's so much to know that's really interesting stuff that's worth pursuing. And this is the foundation. This is just the first course in hopefully a sequence that'll bring some sort of solid understanding of the world they live in, the way things are produced and distributed, and what determines their wealth and their incomes. And the self-awareness of that might give them a little bit of an edge to be a step ahead of the curve in whatever field they're in, and to be a little bit flexible so they can move from one type of job into another. We had a great time when we talked about the debates this year, when the candidates, during the election, and discussing what the different economic positions were of the candidates. And you can't do that unless you've really studied a little economics on your own. And you could see the different schools of thoughts that were being promoted on the different, from the different political parties, and I think the students appreciated that, and we all learned from it. I did too, and like I say, as the economy changes, all those positions are changing too, so you can't pigeonhole any of the candidates into one spot. And I think that's the best that we can offer in the classroom, really. It's something relevant and educational.